The movie starts after the fall of Muammar Gaddafi. As the country falls into chaos, local militants begin raiding his massive weapon stockpiles. These stolen weapons fuel turf wars between rival groups, and soon Benghazi becomes one of the most dangerous cities in the world. Because of the rising violence, all foreign embassies shut down and leave Libya, except for a U.S. diplomatic outpost and a nearby CIA base in Benghazi. These two places remain active and are protected by a small team of private security contractors known as the Global Response Staff, or GRS. After these events, GRS member Jack Silva arrives in Benghazi. At the airport, he is picked up by Tyrone Roan Woods, the commander of the GRS team and an old friend. As they drive toward the CIA base, they witness a shooting on the streets. Suddenly, they find themselves surrounded by a group of armed local militants. Roan quickly contacts the base and asks for backup, but the CIA chief, Bob, refuses to send the team. He doesn't want the contractors leaving the base. The militants try to force Jack and Roan to open their vehicle for inspection. Roan, keeping calm under pressure, warns them that if anything happens, a U.S. drone strike could be called in. The threat is enough to make the militants back off, and they allow them to leave. Once they reach the CIA base safely, Roan confronts Chief Bob for not sending help. But Bob firmly responds that he doesn't want the GRS team involved in any incidents that could cause more problems, saying it's best to let the locals handle their own issues. The GRS team members are not part of the CIA. They're simply hired to provide protection. After being dismissed by the chief, Jack meets the rest of his new team: Geist, Tonto, Tig, and Boone. These are the men he'll be working alongside, his new brothers in arms. As Jack settles in, he's shown around the area and told to always keep a weapon with him for safety. Later, he's taken to his room, where he quietly reflects on how his wife, Becky, didn't support him taking this mission. Some time passes, and Jack has a meeting with the chief. The chief explains that the GRS team is only there because the government insisted on it, not because he wanted them. He makes it clear that he doesn't want them getting involved with the locals or interfering with the CIA's work. He believes his CIA staff can handle everything. Later that day, Roan gathers his team for a briefing. There's an upcoming public meeting between two CIA case officers, Vayner and Giuliani, and a Libyan oil executive whom Giuliani has been building a relationship with. Jack is assigned to pretend to be Giuliani's husband during the meeting, even though Giuliani isn't exactly the friendliest person to work with. During the meeting, things seem calm at first, but the GRS team quickly notices suspicious people watching them from a distance. Realizing it's too risky, Roan steps in and decides to end the meeting early so they can leave safely. When Jack gets the alert, he quickly rushes Giuliani and Vayner back to their car. The CIA agents are annoyed at first, but their frustration fades when they realize they're being followed. During the car chase, Roan takes control of the situation and manages to lose the tail, causing the pursuing vehicle to crash into a nearby forklift. The team escapes safely. Later, Jack ends a tense call with his wife Becky, who expresses her disappointment about his mission. After the call, he joins a video briefing with Glenn Doherty, the GRS commander based in Tripoli. Glenn informs the team that U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens will be arriving in Benghazi on Monday. He'll be staying at the Special Mission Compound with only a small security team. The GRS team is expected to support his protection if needed. After the briefing, the team heads to the Special Mission Compound for a quick assessment. Outside the compound, they encounter a group of local militia members known as February 17th. Once they get past them, they meet Scott Wickland and Dave Ubben, two DSS, Diplomatic Security Service, agents in charge of protecting the ambassador. After looking around the compound, the GRS team is concerned. The place is poorly guarded and in bad shape. If a serious attack were to happen, the compound wouldn't stand a chance. Still, Roan tells the DSS agents that their team is based just 1 mile away at the CIA post. If trouble comes, all they have to do is call, and the GRS will be there fast. On Monday, the GRS team, along with their local translator Amal, meets more frustrated local fighters. The GRS team calms the situation using the Ombo gesture, a local sign of peace. They then secretly buy weapons from the group in order to track the truck and find out who's supplying them. Later, Ambassador Stevens arrives and meets the team. He shares his mission, to build peaceful relations with the Libyans and support the country's path toward democracy. While most of the team listens carefully, Tonto falls asleep during the talk. Chief notices and confronts him afterward, warning that this is his final chance to behave professionally, or he'll be sent home. Later, the GRS team escorts Ambassador Stevens to a meeting with the mayor of Benghazi. However, they are shocked when unauthorized journalists show up to cover the event. Despite the unexpected situation, the meeting proceeds without any problems as the ambassador speaks. Later that day, the GRS team warns the DSS agents that they were lucky this time. After the situation is cleared up, the DSS introduces the GRS to Sean Smith, a surveillance specialist who is setting up security for the compound. Once the introductions are made, the GRS returns to their base. The next day, the base operates as usual, and the team observes the 11th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. Ambassador Stevens expresses his concern about the security risks surrounding the compound, as he notices local Libyans surveying the area. Meanwhile, the GRS members take time to communicate with their families back home. It's during this time that Jack learns his wife, Becky, is pregnant. This news becomes the highlight of the day, as everything else passes quietly without incident. However, as the sun sets, local militants begin gathering around the compound. At sundown, they launch an attack on the outpost, firing rifles and mortars. The militants catch the ambassador and his DSS agents off guard by breaking into the building and opening fire. In the chaos, Wickland manages to retreat with the ambassador and Smith to a safe room. Meanwhile, the GRS team watches the attack unfold from the CIA base and prepares to assist the ambassador. But the chief insists that the local February 17th militia should go instead, as the GRS has no official authority in the area. He reminds them that the GRS is meant to be the last line of defense. Glenn, who is aware of the situation, calls for a plane to fly to Benghazi. Meanwhile, the militants are closing in on the safe room where the ambassador and his team are hiding. Back at the CIA base, Tonto recruits Amal to help with translations when they need to speak with the local February 17th militia. However, the chief insists that Roan and his team stand down and not engage yet. In the midst of the attacks, Geist manages to extract Giuliani from another meeting. The news of the attack reaches the U.S., and as the militants continue their assault, the GRS at the CIA base anxiously wait for clearance to move. While they wait, the militants set fire to the outpost with Ambassador Stevens, Smith, and Wickland still inside the safe room. Seeing the fire and receiving multiple calls for help, the chief reluctantly agrees to send the GRS to assist. However, on their way to the outpost, the GRS team is intercepted by a militant roadblock. Before Amal can communicate with them, a rival militant group arrives, triggering a violent shootout. Meanwhile, back at the base, Geist arrives with Giuliani and instructs the chief to lock down the building. He rushes out to the outpost to help. At the same time, Roan and the others reach the outpost, fighting off the militants alongside the February 17th militia. They are surprised by how accustomed the locals are to these kinds of attacks. The team fights through the militants and eventually reaches the outpost, where they find Wickland. He managed to escape the building, but Stevens and Smith are still missing. The GRS searches through the fiery building but only finds Smith's lifeless body. Later, as the GRS gathers the surviving DSS agents, Amal warns them that the militants plan to regroup for another attack. The GRS quickly gathers whatever they can and prepares to escape. Before they can leave, they are forced to fight off another wave of militants. With the remaining DSS agents loaded into a car, Jack tries to direct Wickland to turn left once they reach the road so they can head back to base. However, Wickland seems too disoriented to understand and drives off, leaving the GRS to continue their escape. However, Wickland turns right instead of left and drives straight into the militants. When they refuse to be captured, they quickly turn around and attempt to escape, facing heavy gunfire. Thankfully, their bulletproof car helps them survive the attack. They manage to reach the base just before the GRS team arrives. Once they get to the base, the chief immediately suggests making a run for the airport after hearing that the ambassador is missing. However, Roan insists that it's too dangerous. He demands that the chief call for help, but the chief says that assistance is too far away and insists that they need to evacuate. Roan overrides him, declaring that he is in charge now. Stunned, the chief briefs the CIA team on an evacuation plan. Meanwhile, Glenn arrives in Benghazi and heads toward the base. Back at the base, as the CIA agents destroy records and prepare to leave, the GRS team gets ready for another attack. The militants know their location, and it's only a matter of time before they strike. A local warns them to turn off their lights, as it will alert the militants to their position. Soon after, they realize they are surrounded by militants, and they brace for the attack. When the militants draw close enough, they throw grenades into the compound, triggering a fierce gun battle. Despite the heavy assault, they manage to fend off the militants without any casualties, gaining a small victory. Later that night, Glenn finally arrives in Benghazi, but he is delayed by haggling generals who are negotiating a fee to take him to the base. Back at the base, the GRS and DSS keep watch and fend off more militants while the CIA agents continue calling for help. Rohn tells Glenn he understands the situation and lets him join them. Meanwhile, Amal and Giuliani negotiate with the generals to lead Glenn to the base. Rohn learns that Glenn is in Benghazi, but the team is having trouble finding their way due to unfamiliar territory. He tries to get help from the local authorities, but they are uncooperative. Meanwhile, back at the airport, Glenn warns the generals that if anyone at the base dies due to the delays, he will hold them responsible and kill them all. Back at the base, the chief learns that Stevens might have been found in a local hospital. At the same time, Giuliani meets Geist on a roof and brings him food. He asks her if they managed to get help from the US, but she tells him it's unlikely. Geist admits he's unsure, but advises her to reach out to her people just in case. Elsewhere, Tonto urges Amal to leave for his safety, but Amal insists on staying. Jack expresses his concern that if Stevens is still alive, Glenn might reach him before they do. Just then, they realize another wave of militants is approaching the building. A few minutes later, the militants launch their attack. After a while, the assault stops, and the GRS waits for the next one. Jack admits he's worried about how his family would feel if he dies in a war he's not a part of. He wonders why he didn't stay home and worries about another man raising his kids. Rohn shares his concerns, saying he's also worried about someone else raising his son. Soon, they're interrupted by news that Glenn and his team are on their way. They also learn that Stevens has been confirmed dead at the hospital. The men prepare for the next wave of attackers, knowing they may not survive. Sometime later, Glenn arrives with his men and some Libyan soldiers, boosting the team's morale. However, there is no relief, as there are too many people to evacuate at once. Glenn orders them to hold the base while they get more vehicles. But as soon as Glenn leaves, the base comes under heavy mortar and artillery attack. One of the mortars hits Geist, severely injuring him, and another mortar kills Rohn as he tries to help Geist. Ubben is also badly injured with a broken leg. As Tig prays over Rohn's lifeless body, Jack mourns nearby. Geist returns to the base and receives medical help, soon followed by Ubben, whose leg is badly broken. As the men recover from the attack, they are horrified to see another large group of Libyan militants approaching the base. With the threat of a final battle looming, Tonto swears he'll go down fighting. But when he sees the Libyans make the Jambo gesture, he realizes they are allies. Overcome with relief, he breaks down in tears. Soon after, the GRS, DSS, and CIA teams evacuate the base. A despondent chief tries to stay, but Jack forces him to snap out of it. Jack reminds him that if he stays, more men will have to come to save him again. The chief reluctantly agrees, and they evacuate. Tonto closes the gates and invites Amal to leave with him, but Amal refuses, apologizing for the chaos caused by his countrymen. After the Americans leave, the Libyans enter and recover their dead. In the final scenes, the evacuees arrive at the airport and board relief planes. Giuliani and the chief thank Jack and the GRS team for their service. Nearby, Tonto hands the keys to their cars to the Libyan fighters, who excitedly drive off with them. The remaining GRS team members reflect on the attack, speculating that it may have been planned weeks in advance. But they are grateful to have had each other's support during the ordeal, and they are relieved to be heading home. Before leaving Libya, Jack calls Becky and tells her about the events. He sadly reveals that they have lost Rohn and that this will be his last tour. Jack looks at his fallen friend one last time before they leave the country. The final title cards reveal that Libya faced international condemnation after the attack, and that most of the GRS team members retired after this mission.
Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications, so you can watch more movies like this. Thanks for watching.